unidentified alien discovered in Russia. Hey everybody, welcome back. We're here, Blake Cousins standing by, Brent on the mic right now. We just got this information from Russia. We had a tip and we had to go over it. It's exciting. We've had corroborations. Dr. Stephen Greer right here at Third Phase of Moon has the same discovery. Are these ancient aliens discovered here on Earth on separate parts of the world? Breaking news, new information. I want to get Blake on the line. He just saw this information. I tagged it up and I pulled it up, and we're going to go over this right now with testimony from Dr. Stephen Greer coming up.
You're right, Brent, thanks. We spoke to Dr. Greer a couple of years ago in regards to the Atacama alien. What was it? We're not exactly sure, but out of Russia, these high-res detailed photographs look very similar to the Atacama that Dr. Greer was talking about. We did an interview with him, and we're about to share this, but one thing we want to go over is more details out of Russia in regards to these incredible high-res imagery coming in right now to Third Phase. Brent, what's coming up?
The evidence is this body is unaccounted for. It's disappeared. Unfortunately, we don't have the proof for the scientists to actually do science on this being, what we're looking at.
Wow, this is disparaging news as you're saying this to me right now. So right now this is unlocatable. This body is gone. Okay, Brent, look, keep it up. Keep up the information. Let's roll through this, because when Dr. Greer submitted this to the public, it said that the DNA really could not match certain human DNA, that it could have been alien. Now we don't have a second match. This second entity, whatever it is, could collaborate that this could be an actual alien being, a brother or a sister. You know, we're just putting it out here. Information coming in, Third Phase of Moon. Let's get to the Dr. Greer interview and let him explain of what he thinks the Atacama alien is. Brent, thanks for the research. Thanks for the update.
Blake, more evidence coming in right now and information on this Atacama and ancient alien discovery. Let's hear some more from Dr. Greer.
And by the way, there are no syndromes in humans that have 10 ribs. And it's very symmetric. It's not like a deformed, when you see a deformed fetus, there are obvious deformities, medically speaking. I've, unfortunately, as an emergency doctor, delivered some of these that are badly deformed and don't survive. But I certainly never have delivered something that's only 6 inches long and lives to be 6 years of age. Even in our intensive care units at the best hospital in the world today, you cannot keep such a child alive. And so this begs the question, what is this? And so suddenly, they start digging down on the genes that normally cause what's called dwarfism, which is very short stature. And none of the genes that are known in any of the dwarf syndromes of anyone ever on Earth is found in this specimen, because they look specifically for that. So then they started looking at other genes that control for height. And they have found, and this is the big news that's just happened in the last month or two, they have found genes that control for the stature, and I'm quoting from the geneticist at Stanford, Dr. Nolan, who stated to me that the chances that this is a mutation, meaning just a deformation due to some kind of one-off isolated mutation, is, I'm quoting here, infinitesimally small, meaning that it almost certainly is not just a deformed human. Now, that is a huge breakthrough. Now, the question then becomes, well, what is it? Well, we can't say what it is yet, because there's no provenance saying that this came from a species from another star system. Now, there are associated clinical or field research findings that we found that this little being, and people who are curious about this, they can go to SiriusDisclosure.com, SIRIUS disclosure.com, and see all the X-rays and MRI scans and reports from Dr. Lockman, etc. And also the film is still there. You can see the video on demand, and soon we're going to make it so that you can download to own it, so you don't have to actually get the DVD, but you can get the DVD of the film. And in all that research that was done, what we found in the aftermath, when this got released, there are these things that have been reported all over the world. There was one in Russia from 1996. Looks very similar to this. That was about a foot tall, but was apparently a fully grown adult. And there are reports of others of these that are down in the Atacama Desert in Chile, which is the driest place in the world. Now, I talked to one researcher who had gone back down there when this specimen first surfaced in 2004, between 2004 and 2014. I'm not sure what dates. He had gone down there and found that, in fact, there were reports of luminous objects that would go into the foothills of the Andes, sort of dematerialize and go into the earth. And that there are other reports that when they started mining in that area in the 1800s and early 1900s, they would cut into some earthen areas that would have like small little underground cities that would be to the size of these life forms. So the question becomes, is there more to be found on this? And the answer is probably yes. Now, we're wanting to do a follow-up sort of research on this and then come out with a second documentary that focuses just on this whole mysterious Atacama humanoid phenomenon, because what we have found is there's much more to this story than the public has heard yet, and that we're just still learning. The most fascinating part of it is that if there's more than one of these, all the scientists that are working on this have said that then it's case closed. If there's more than one, you're dealing with a totally different species. Right now, nobody can state that to certainty, but I have to point out also that Neanderthals, which are a separate species from Homo sapiens or humans, is 99.5% genetically identical to modern Homo sapiens, and gorillas are 98.5 or 98.7% identical to humans, and therefore this only being 91% matching, and there are all these other clinical anomalies, it certainly doesn't look like anything that we can say is just a one-off deformed human. And now that they found a gene that looks like a normal gene and not something that's the result of a mutation, because they can tell that by looking at it, this then begins to bring up the question, are there more of these? Has there been a civilization from elsewhere that has been on the planet for a very long time? And are these accounts that I was in New York giving a talk about a month ago, and a man who has a home in Ireland says, this reminds me of the stories of the wee people, the wee ones, the little ones in Ireland and other places where people have reported. And, of course, a lot of these things become mythology, or mythologized, I should say. But maybe those myths are based in something that people have actually seen that is evidence of another species of humanoid-like creatures. So that's the intriguing question in all of this. I'm the founder of the Worldwide Disclosure Movement, and the 2001 National Press Club event kicked that off, and now we have over 500 military and corporate and intelligence witnesses who come forward. On our website, we have like 5 or 6 dozen of these people's testimonies up there for anyone who wants to look at them to see, and also on our YouTube channel. So all this is out there, and yet people still say, well, when is disclosure going to happen? And what I always answer is, you don't get it. I went from 1993 until 2001 personally briefing the president's men, as it were, all the president's men, and the CIA director, and the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, and the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and members of the Senate Intelligence Committee, members of the royal families in Europe, and else and on and on and on. I'm not going to belabor my bona fides. The point is that those folks, if they knew at all, and most of them do not, if they knew at all, were afraid to step forward after former CIA director Bill Colby was going to help us with this and was assassinated, and they found his body floating down the Potomac River back in the mid to late 90s. I believe it was 96 or something like that. And so I think that the people who are in these covert programs are afraid to come forward with actionable intelligence that's current, and the people who are your normal political class that get elected and come and go in office are people who, to be honest with you, almost never are briefed on this in any real detail. And even if they are briefed, we have to make the distinction between them knowing about the issue and having access control. And by access control, I mean they're actually able to order through the chain of command for something to be done, and it will be done. In more likelihood of what happens, if you look at the film Sirius, we go through this at some length about what an unacknowledged special access project is. And I got introduced to these back about 20 years ago, and some military advisors I had who had been in these projects said, look, this is how this works. You know, we have $100 to $200 billion a year being, frankly, embezzled out of the coffers of the United States that go into ultra super black projects, not ordinary black, but the really deep black national security super state. And the people who are in these unacknowledged special access projects, which we call USAPs, are ordered that even if the commander-in-chief asks them about that, or even if their commanding general asks them about what they're doing, they are to respond, I'm not doing anything, this project doesn't exist. Now, one of my military advisors was in a project that was $2 or $3 billion way back in the, I believe it was the 70s or 80s. There was one unacknowledged special access project, one of them that was that much. And there are many of them that are running inside covert programs through the corporate world, mainly at Lockheed, Northrop Grumman, Booz Allen Hamilton, SAIC, Raytheon, E-Systems, MITRE Corporation, EG&G, etc. So what happens is that the public very mistakenly thinks that the President of the United States or the UN Secretary General or the Prime Minister of England, or for that matter, the Queen of England, is going to be able to stand up and say, here's this, this, and this, and this. And the reality is those folks often don't know much or anything about it. And to the extent that they do know about it, they're terrified about acknowledging it, not because they think the public's going to freak out, but because they don't want to admit that they don't have control over these projects. And what Eisenhower said when he said, beware the military-industrial complex, because it'll be a threat to our democracy and way of life, this is what he was talking about. So, you know, what I tried to do in the 90s was to encourage these leaders to do the right thing and frankly, force the issue and get these projects under control. None of them wanted to do it because of the risks involved. And therefore, I concluded in 2001 that the disclosure would need to be done by we the people. And if the people will lead, eventually the leaders will follow. And that's really where it rests. It rests with us now. And there's two ways of doing that. Having more insiders come forward and telling the truth with actionable intelligence, as they call it, in documents, information, specific details. The other is for people to go out and endeavor to make contact with these civilizations directly, bypassing the whole stranglehold that the secret government programs have on this. Because the truth is, I remember meeting with the head of Army Intelligence years ago, and a couple guys from the National Security Agency and CIA who were very, frankly, pissed off that I was doing this, is that I was training people how to use consciousness and a set of protocols to go out to areas and make contact, and these objects were appearing. This has been going on now in our project for 22, 23 years, and they were very disturbed by this because they knew that this is sort of the Rosetta Stone of contact, but it's also the main way that this could get out of their control, because if people took this under their own hands and started directly doing protocols that were effective to make contact, maybe they can monitor me and a few people, but they can't keep track of what everyone is doing everywhere, and even if they can't suppress every place. So what we've done now is that we have thousands, tens of thousands of people who have gone
ancient aliens discovered here on Earth on separate parts of the world. Breaking news, new information. I want to get Blake on the line. He just saw this information. I tagged it up and I pulled it up, and we're going to go over this right now with testimony from Dr. Stephen Greer coming up.
You're right, Brent. Thanks. We spoke to Dr. Greer a couple years ago in regards to the Atacama.
Mummified alien discovered in Russia. Hey everybody, welcome back. We're here, Blake Cousins standing by, Brent on the mic right now. We just got this information from Russia. We had a tip and we had to go over it. It's exciting. We've had corroborations. Dr. Stephen Greer right here at Thirdphaseofmoon has the same discovery. Are these...
Dr. Greer submitted this to the public. It said that the DNA really could not match certain human DNA, that it could have been alien. Now we don't have a second match. This second entity, whatever it is, could collaborate that this could be an actual alien being, a brother or a sister. You know, we're just putting it out here. Information coming in, Thirdphaseofmoon. Let's get to the Dr. Alien. What was it? We're not exactly sure, but out of Russia, these high-res detailed photographs look very similar to the Atacama that Dr. Greer was talking about. We did an interview with him, and we're about to share this, but one thing we want to go over is more details out of Russia in regards to these incredible high-res imagery coming in right now to Third Phase. Brent, what's coming up?
The evidence is this body is unaccounted for. It's disappeared. Unfortunately, we don't have the proof for the scientists to actually do science on this being, what we're looking at.
Wow, this is disparaging news as you're saying this to me right now. So right now this is unlocatable. This body is gone. Okay, Brent, look, keep it up. Keep up the information. Let's roll through this because when